Every good superhero needs an origin, and that's exactly what you're going to get in the 4th episode of Luke Cage. In the last episode of Luke Cage, Luke was attacked by Cottonmouth with a freaking rocket launcher, which has caused this entire Chinese restaurant to come toppling down on top of him and Genghis Khani. And while he's stuck under all this rubble, it gives us the perfect opportunity to look at his origins and how he became so superpowered in the first place. Personally, for me, I'm not really a big fan of origin stories. I don't even really feel that I needed to see Luke Cage's backstory. All I needed to know was he was a part of an experiment that went wrong, he became superpowered, and that's about it. And that's pretty much all you get from the origin in this episode. It's not so much an origin as it is seeing what happened to Luke Cage when he was in prison. It is pretty important to his backstory, I will give it that, and it actually kind of gave me that old Shawshank Redemption feeling, if you know what I mean. And let's face it, the best part about this episode, without a doubt, was the final scene, when Luke Cage was punching his way out of the rubble. While all of this was going on at the same time, you had the flashback sequence where he just emerged from this chamber, which was supposedly going to heal a lot of the wounds that he had in prison, but it inadvertently got cut off halfway, and he became super powered, and you get to see him punching a wall at the same time as he's plowing through the prison as he makes his grand escape. But the best part of the episode, without a doubt, was getting to see Luke Cage in his original comic book outfit, which, yes, they did sort of poke fun at it, and even I have to admit, the old school Luke Cage costume is totally a product of the 1970s. It just really wouldn't work here, although I did really appreciate seeing it. The weird tiara thing that he wears, the huge V-necked yellow shirt, the chain, the pants, it was all there, but I have to admit, it does look pretty damn cheesy. Although he does look awesome with the gauntlets and the tiara helmet type thing. It looked really cool, and it was a great callback to the original character. But that's always what's been so cool about Luke Cage, is that everybody already kind of knows who he is, and he doesn't really need, like, a special outfit or anything. I mean, 90% of the time when I've seen him in the comic books, he's just a really big buff dude wearing a yellow shirt. I will say this, because this episode's setting was set entirely within a prison, this episode felt really long. It kind of felt like watching a movie, and it moved at a pretty slow pace, but it's really important to Luke Cage's character as he was in prison, he shouldn't be there, he's completely innocent, and he's gonna try to do what all of the hard asses in prison try to do, be the strong and silent type. Not talk about their past, not interact with everyone, but eventually, just like Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption, he's gonna end up making some friends and some enemies while he's in prison. And there's this whole subplot going on where there's this one corrupted guard who's gathering a lot of strong inmates and forcing them to fight and putting it on the internet. And he wants Luke Cage to be his #1 fighter. And eventually he starts to tell him, look, if you're not going to fight for me, I'm going to end up killing all your friends. So Luke Cage has no choice but to go into the gauntlet, and he just destroys everyone who gets in his wake. What is interesting to note is, for the last couple of episodes, we've seen a very clean-shaven Luke Cage. And I mean that literally. Like, he has no hair. He's completely bald. And here, you get to see him with all of this ridiculous caveman-styled hair. As the episode goes on, his hair just gets poofier and longer and more ridiculous. It sort of, like, is a visual metaphor for how, like, bad his life is at the moment. How much farther he is going down the rabbit hole and never coming back. But at the very end of the episode, he does manage to come back in full force with some superhuman powers. Now, aside from that, and the origin and all that other jazz, the most important part of this episode is we get to see him forming his relationship with Reva Connors, who's a psychologist at the prison, who's basically trying to rehabilitate all of the prisoners, and trying her damnedest to crack the shell that is Luke Cage. And you can definitely see that they are forming a very strong and sexual relationship. They do end up falling for each other, and by the end of the episode, he meets up with Reva again, and they end up forming a relationship, but we all know from the last couple of episodes, that relationship does not last too long. So what's the rundown on the second episode of Luke Cage? Honestly, I just don't have that much more to say about it. It was just sort of like your standard stuck in prison kind of episode. If you've ever seen like a prison movie or anything like that, it's definitely gonna feel the same. The biggest difference is here now, it also involves a superhero origin, which just sort of comes out of nowhere. They sort of hint at it a little bit in the beginning of the episode, where some of the inmates are like, there's some crazy shit going on here, some X-Files shit. And of course, everybody that works in the prison is denying all of this. They apparently have these chambers which can heal people completely. completely, but somehow Luke's got all messed up when the entire machine got unplugged and it somehow turned him into this indestructible badass. I'm not gonna question it. I really don't care that much about Luke Cage's origin. I just want to see him do his thing and see his powers in action. That's all I need. Sometimes the origin of a superhero can be directly tied to their absolute motivations. There really isn't much of that in this episode right here. Luke Cage would have probably been trying to right the wrongs even if he didn't have these powers. These powers are basically just the cherry on top of the kick-ass sundae for him, and he's going to take advantage of that. I do have to say, though, I loved how throughout the entire episode you get to see him and Connie stuck under the rubble at various parts of the story, where eventually he does finally make it out. Everybody witnesses this, but I'm not sure if they realize that Luke Cage is like a superhuman being. Misty Knight, on the other hand, definitely knows that something is going down. And also, they have like this surveillance footage of the attack that happened in the last episode with the rocket, and I originally thought that Misty's partner was going to find a way to get rid of this footage or pretend that like it never existed or anything. It's bad news to even keep that thing around, but he's clearly up to no good, and you can definitely see that in this episode. Now that he's actually been outed, I'm going to be watching him very closely. What I will say is, this was still a pretty damn good episode of Luke Cage. It was a pretty decent origin story, and like I said, the real reason to check this episode out is definitely to see the Luke Cage costume. It was awesome. That and the fact that if you like a good prison show or prison movie, check out this episode. It's just like that, just with superhuman powers. So this is definitely my least favorite episode of the series. That being said, it was still pretty well produced and well acted and had some good atmosphere going for it. It was just really slow to get through, but still, I liked it. So I'm going to give this one right here a 4 out of 5. So you heard my thoughts about the 4th episode of Luke Cage, but I want to hear from you guys. What did you think of the origin story of Power Man himself? Did you have a favorite scene from this episode? Did you enjoy the prison story? What did you think of his actual origins? And what about that classic Luke Cage costume? And what do you want to see from the rest of the show? Please tell me in the comment section below. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching this review. I really appreciate it. Some easy ways to support Super Kami Guru 9000. You can hit the like button, comment on the video, or even if you want, please subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be able to see all of our latest anime, manga reviews, TV show reviews, and all types of other cool shit. So, thanks for watching again, guys, and I will see you next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby.